Hello everyone. This is not a Pokemon video. You might have noticed very quickly it is not a Pokemon video. That's right, I said I'd do it. And here I am presenting to you my very own card game, Resource Rumble. Let's talk about it. So, in making a card game, I did quite a bit of nonsense, to be frank, but I want to talk about why I made a card game, the goals I had, personal goals and external goals that already answer the question that I've already ignore it. And I also want to introduce my game to you, how far I have to go from here, and what I am designing. So I am here, Gizapniak, on behalf of my studio of one, Dawnright Games, I suppose, going to present to you why I decided to make Resource Rumble. So, let's talk about who I am a little bit more first. I enjoy the Pokemon franchise. I've talked about it a lot. My YouTube feed kind of shows that. I'm a TCG player since 2010. I've been playing the video games since the Diamond and Pearl era, and I've also been playing a lot of other games recently. I've been playing Magic the Gathering, specifically Commander, and a very slight bit of online, Legacy, and Modern. Normally brackets 1 to 3 for Commander, but I am branching into 4 and very basic CDH, plus becoming a bit of a rules lawyer in that game, if that matters to any of you. When it comes to the One Piece TCG, I've been playing a lot of Bello Betty and have been for years. When it comes to one of my favorite games of all time, Star Realms, a deck building card game that was manufactured over a decade ago at this point, and still to this day one of my favorite games. And I'm a deck builder by heart over a player all the time, and a player by circumstance. I say it in the outro of every video, and I mean it more than ever. That's kind of a profile on who I am as a card game player. But if you guys want to go down into the comment section below, tell me what got you into card games. Tell me your story on how you entered card games. And while you're down there, if you're on mobile, hype the video. If you're not on mobile, like the video. And if you want to subscribe, be sure to ring the bell. I have a lot of videos already coming out, and I don't know how many more I'm going to be chaining because they are a lot of work, all things considered, but I don't intend to take another 6-month hiatus for a little while. So with that, let's move on a little bit. Why did I make a card game? What really got me there? And ultimately, it is primarily a bucket list item for me. I love playing card games, I love rules lawyering, I love designing things, and I wanted to get a card game that I could get people to play easily and efficiently with me. Getting people into card games is very hard. The time for it, the cost for it, the fact that they need to go out of their way to spend external costs, trying to branch that difficulty gap, the barriers to entry of someone with something cheap, someone with something expensive is difficult. In addition, it was a uni requirement. I was in school, and I had to design a card game, or I had to design any sort of game that could be used for educational purposes, and I saw that as a way to link my passions and make something I was proud of, because teaching things through play just is more fun than teaching things otherwise, so I wanted an accessible card game that worked to teach people, that was easy to play, that had no cost associated, and was very quick to learn. So, my goals for the project overall. As an academic piece, I had to create a card game that has relevant educational outcomes. It had to be curriculum adjacent to my region's academic curriculum for elementary ages. It also had to have polished card UI and or UX in mind, and I had to use proper project management theory and techniques. But of course, in a class of 20, when you're assigned to the group of 1, you kind of get to bypass and cheat that one a little bit. Oh well. And in addition, I had to make sure that the project is presentable in professional context as well, and well polished, all things considered. You'll notice on the right side, there is a whole lot of card graphics that I'm going to be showing you throughout the presentation. I don't exactly remember if I'm going to be showing you a demonstration of the game being played, but the thumbnail does have an image of a potential board state in it if you so desire to look at that and there will be another still freeze frame at the end of the video. So, when it comes to personal requirements for the card game, what did I need? I needed it to be easy and fast to teach so that people could get into it very comfortably. I also want it to be accessible for color blindness, text legibility overall. I also wanted the icons to be easily recognizable. For example, when it comes to being a Canadian, I know, shame on me, the coins that we are using for our unit marker are represented through the colors of the loonie, which is our $1 coin. The damage symbols are all reflective of the hazard symbol. The healing symbols are representative of the medical universal sign for personal protective equipment. The shield icon is a nice durable shield shape with a very deep rich color that is also symbolic of personal protective equipment. In addition to all of that though, I'm getting sidetracked. I wanted applicable artworks that got to the point and were eye-catching and made it to where you wanted to look at the cards even if the art is kind of miserable. I'm not an artist, but I never claimed to be, and I just wanted something that would get people to be engaged with it a bit beyond the surface layer. In addition, I wanted it to be cheap to play, one deck per table being all you needed, one deck for both players to share, or even up to 4 players to share from in order to play. And I wanted to develop a deck building card game rooted in statistics. That was my core goal. So I got to it. My game outline itself. Resource Rumble is a deck building card game where one box is split between 2 to 4 players, with every player starting with a 10 or 5 card starting deck, and the shared deck being a 70 card versatile element based deck that is shared within all players, sat at the middle of the table, and players are able to purchase cards from that shared deck to upgrade their own personal 5 to 10 card decks that they start with. I know that's very, like, a lot of words, word overflow. Hopefully I'll get to explain it a little bit more a bit later on, but the big moral from that is that I had it being affordable. You can get one box of exactly 100, or really 108 cards, because I have 8 rules cards. I'll get into that later. But it's 100 to 108 cards that you can sit at the middle of a table and have 2 to 4 people playing at the same time. It is a chaotic game about cause and effect. It highlights synergies, teamwork, choosing effects that synergize, choosing cards that synergize to make a very effective and chaotic deck with a lot of things going on whenever you want there to be, but also only one player ever doing a thing at a time to make sure it's easy to track. In addition, the game functions through managing cards in your deck to optimize your outcomes, optimizing synergies, optimizing elemental synergies, and optimizing your effects in order to get the most efficient end outcomes possible to either not lose, to win, or kind of to sit somewhere in between and control the board state a little bit better. The last player to 0 life wins, with every player starting at 40 life total, and that's how we have Resource Rumble. The gameplay loop itself is rather simple. Players may play cards from their hand, all effects when put down resolve instantly, and you can play synergies for bonus effects. If you look on the right side of your screen, you will see an image of Two-Fort from TF2. But in reality, you see a protection facility. It is a card that lets you choose something you've already played that turn, and it enters an environment zone. And it enters the environment zone with health. That way it stays in play after your turn, and if it doesn't receive enough damage, then it stays in play. In addition, if you've already played an electric type card that turn, you get 4 additional units in order to spend on cards to upgrade your deck. You also get to manipulate your deck in other ways. You get to scrap cards from your hand in order to optimize your deck and control tempo. Scrapping is removing a card entirely from the game. It takes whatever card you choose from your hand, and you get to remove it from the game. While you do that, you also get to choose one of the cards from the shared deck to also remove from the game. And when the shared deck runs out of cards, all of the scrapped cards previously become the new shared deck. And the game goes on and on with that shared resource pile until there is one definitive winner. In addition, as I've mentioned earlier, you get to purchase cards from that shared deck to enhance your own deck overall. And at the very end of your turn, you draw to 5. There's no drawing at the start of your turn, all draws happen at the end. That's so you can work with card manipulation strategies in a bit more of an intricate way, and so that you can plan your turn before your opponent is done. In addition, I wanted to make sure that the icons were nice and polished. All of the icons on screen you've been able to see in the presentation already. Ignore the fact that the text is spelt with a trash can, just kind of happened that way. But icons, I wanted to indicate what to do based on the number printed on the icon with very clearly appropriate icons, as I've mentioned before. The hazard symbol, universal health symbol, a dollar symbol, 2 different visually distinct card symbols, a symbol in order to do a concept called scrying in our game Researching, where you look at the top card of your deck, and you may choose to put it on the bottom of your deck or keep it on top of your deck in order to manipulate your next turn a little bit ahead of time, or in order to pair with your draw effects for better synergy. I also wanted text to be a little bit more streamlined where possible. I wanted it to contain all of the rules text on the card as possible, so you didn't need so many different resources in order to understand the game thoroughly. I didn't want it to be a Magic where every keyword has a million interactions, and I also didn't want it to be a Yu-Gi-Oh where every card has a million words of text. A happy middle ground is where I rested at, and I'm very happy with it. In addition, you have the elements that are signified through the top left gradient and top right symbol on your screen, and in addition, the middle to left gradient and in the microscope, the 2 little symbols, in order to represent the synergies that you might be able to get bonus effects from through playing your cards. In addition, the game does have one rather unique component, all things considered in my opinion anyways, known as the stack. Not a Magic stack, but a completely mechanically unique stack, where all cards will resolve instantly upon being played to the stack. If an element synergizes with a card that's already on the stack, you get your bonus effect. For example, on the right I have a graphic that might be an accurate portrayal of a game state. Using Final Sendoff, a red card, to scrap something from the middle shared deck, and then using that effect as Final Sendoff's effect, then using Downstream in order to get 3 life, 2 units, and also research 2 cards from the top of your deck. And lastly, for that turn, the player would play something like a Squirrel Scramble to heal 2, do 4 damage, and also off of the fire synergy, draw a card. And because they've already researched for the turn, they know exactly what card they're going to draw, and they're going to be able to play it on the turn that they draw it. Overall, there's a lot of really cool synergies that you can find throughout the game, and every single element of the game is statistically balanced as much as possible so that every color synergizes with other colors in as streamlined a way possible. But all of the costs aren't counts. All the cards for costs and counts are perfectly balanced to give every color a unique identity of what costs give you synergies, what costs activate synergies best, what cards are more so enablers, what are your powerhouses, and even though everything is statistically balanced, every color has its own unique identity. The stack also will reset at the end of every turn, meaning that all the cards you played in a stack during your turn, at the end of your turn, they all go to the discard pile. When you run out of cards in your deck, your discard pile becomes your deck. You have an infinite deck that way, and you also don't have true infinites in the game. Lots of cards is lots of fun, and lots of synergies means that you get to go through a lot of cards really effectively. In addition, I have my environment component that I talked about earlier. They are quote-unquote shield cards that stay in play after you play them. If you have 4+ shields in play, you can't take damage during your next turn unless one of the shields is taken down. In addition, there is a type weakness element to our game here, where if a certain type receives damage from a certain other type, it'll immediately get destroyed. Thankfully, all of that is rules paper. You don't need it to understand the game's fundamentals. It's all outside of the scope for what I'm going to need to explain to you. But basically, there's a bit of counterplay to some of the massive numbers you're going to see on some of the cards, and some of the strong effects like territory expansion, doubling all of the shield values in play. In addition to that, your shield elements, your environments, are always considered on the stack. And so you get to use your synergies for different colors as long as they are in the element zone. They can also be attacked, just like players, if your opponent doesn't like the effect, but if they don't attack it, that's okay, you'll just get extra effects the next turn. You can use those effects anytime during your turn. So for example, if you're using Snells, you get to research 2 at any time during your turn, once per turn of course. If you have an electric card on the stack, you get to draw 1 anytime during your turn, and you can also scrap specifically Snells from play in order to draw an additional card. So lots of cool things going on with how cards can be used and maximized. Some of the rules are weird though. I get it, I understand it. Why are the rules weird? Well, I wanted the game to be focused on interaction, but also with only one player doing anything at any given time. I wanted it to be designed to where there is disruption active in the game, but it doesn't outright halt momentum, and that you're able to plan for everything such as disruption ahead of time. That's why at the end of your turn, you draw until 5, so that all of the times your opponent is discarding cards, you can choose based on your cards, what do I want to discard that is of least value, what do I want to keep in my hand that is higher value. In addition, the player is often opted with a bunch of choices on what they can choose to do with their cards to maximize their value, and I wanted to make sure that there was a very high action count per turn, so that while you're watching your opponent do all of their crazy combos and while you're thinking about your crazy turn, there's still something else to do and there's still something to look forward to, because you know there's a lot of cards that are going to be hitting the field really soon. Everything has a high potency, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. There's also a lot of room for strategic thinking with your ability to determine if you want a super long synergy chain, if you want very small synergies that are very strong of a lot of different elements, if you want to chain with just 2 colors or 5 colors and going for very explosive turns, moderately explosive turns, how to not be the threat at the table, how to be the only threat at the table. It's up to you how you choose to approach the game. And the power curve is kept very consistent through the costs as well, so you can keep tempo and you don't feel like you're out of the game until it's over. So, what did I learn designing a card game? I learned a lot of lessons. Having a team would have been nice. Being able to have people to test with, having people to balance with, people to work on visual assets, to work on card effects, to work on statistics balance. I spent tens and honestly probably hundreds of hours working on this game, working on this product that I know is realistically never being released to market. I am a solo developer, I don't have the funds for it. It's not going to realistically happen. I have manufactured and physically printed one version of the card game that was expensive enough as is, and I don't see myself going to mass production with this anytime soon. As much as I would love to, I don't know if that's something realistic for me. But what I do know is I have my deck, and I'm able to share it with the community, I'm able to test with them, get opinions from them, and every product I make from here on out I know will be better and better, and it's all thanks to the community that I've worked with to get my product to where it is now. I also planned way early on for experimentation in my design process. The main prototype of the deck was done way back in, I want to say out of our 4-month development cycle, it was done by the end of January, and then I had 2 months of testing before my print run. So it was very testing intensive in order to make sure that visual conveyance was proper, in order to make sure symbols were accurate, to make sure that reading the text explained the card, in order to make sure that everything kind of made sense, in order to make sure it was eye-catching to the visual eye. For example, that weird little whiteboard effect on the back of some of the low-cost cards, that was a very late addition that I'm so happy we went with because a community member suggested to make it look more like a classroom, and I'm so happy I went with it. In addition to that, I am very happy that I am passionate about this process. If I wasn't, it would be a very slow process. I've done game design before, I've done game jams before, I've worked on a 15-person game dev team before, and it was slow. It was very slow, it was almost excruciatingly slow, and it was because there wasn't a lot of passion in the project. And so, be passionate or it will slow you down. And last but not least, research everything. Know what there is to know. If you are looking for the answer to a question, it is online somewhere. If it's about visual hierarchy, if it's about visual presentations, if it's about what makes colors pop, if it's about what is eye-catching, if it's about what makes a good reference or a good visual gag or whatever it might be. Researching whatever, you'll find the answers you need. And in addition to that, take your time to learn. Diversify your testing group if you can. I played with people who've never played a card game, people who are experts in card games. I wanted to make sure that everything was kept in mind. If everyone in your testing group knows that the game ends when your life hits 0, how will you notice it's not written down anywhere? This is a genuine issue I had in my third prototype wave. I had never written down the win condition, but everyone had always assumed it was to get your life total to 0 because we all knew that you started at 40 life. So make sure that you have people everywhere who can kind of grow and understand the game with you. In addition, note that inspiration comes in weird ways. Even if it's thinking back to that weird science project from 2010, you'll find it somehow, and sometimes inside jokes that can actually be pretty funny. If you keep them in the game, it'll make it more entertaining for you to play long term, and for your friends who helped you along the way to want to revisit it over and over. So what's next? What am I doing with this? It's a done game, it's a done project, but production is money. Retheming things in order to try and get rid of some of the external IPs that make it so fun is difficult, and profit is just not something that is realistically attainable for such a small panel. So it might be done, and that might be okay. It's unlikely to be released, but I have my copy of the deck, and the lessons carry elsewhere. You can take it into professional careers, you can take it into professional life, and there's always places to take creativity and to show that you know how to sit down, put your mind to something, and make something amazing out of it. I'm going to continue game deving, even if it's simple, even if it's digital and not analog anymore. I'm gonna really try and master my craft a little bit. I'm going to polish the text a little bit more, I'm going to refine the website for the game a little bit better, and it might just be something that's good for the resume and isn't always used, but it's something that's out there, it's something that's in the world, and it's something to be proud of. If you guys want to see anything more, you can drop the subscribe. I don't know if I'll talk about game design a whole lot more. Maybe I'll think about some other different content I might make in that space. For example, I might try and make a video about what my perfect Pokemon cards to add to every format I've played might have been, or something of that nature. If you want to see silly shenanigans and talk to me live, we got a live channel. If you want to talk to me in a very parasocial way, we have the parasocial capital of the internet, and we also have a way to talk personally, one-on-one and or through our server. You'll never miss uploads over there. Last but not least, all of the links for the video are in the description. Normally I have all of this stuff about Pokemon at the end, but we'll see how I finalize designing that. I just want to thank you all for listening to basically an indie game dev yap for a little while. I want to know how many references you guys caught in some of these slides. Even this last one over here has a couple of references on it to a couple of pop culture things. You let me know what you can find. You let me know what you can spot. You can let me know if you want to try and play the game, because I'm always down to open up a Discord VC and try and get things going. And or if any of you are experts in Tabletop Simulator, I kind of want to try and import this to Tabletop Simulator. So you let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, and I'll probably talk to you about seeing if we can get started. Thank you all very much for tuning in to this very special episode of Whatever Keith is Doing, and I'll catch you all later.